Hi, I'm Katara Johnson, and I am the CEO of Gabriel's Challenge. And today I am here with Mike Valerien, who is a municipal court judge for the city of Spokane. And I'm so glad to have him here as part of our series because it is important that we educate, engage our community, and be empowered to make the changes that need to happen. With that being said, I have a question for you, Mike. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm actually a commissioner. I'm not a judge. Judges are elected, commissioners are appointed. But essentially to do the same job, I wear a black robe, I preside over court cases. I'm just not elected. I've been doing that for 10 years in the city of Spokane. Before that, I was a prosecuting attorney for 8 years for the city of Spokane. Before that, I actually worked for Spokane County 911. And before that, I was an Air Force officer out at Fairchild.
Wait, so you've been serving in the community for quite some time. Air Force, 911. I mean, wow.
Yeah, most of my adult life has been spent in the service of the community, whether it be through the military or through local public safety or in a judicial system.
Well, thank you for your service.
It's my pleasure.
When people first appear in your courtroom, what do you think surprises them the most about how the court process actually works?
I think the thing that would surprise them about our courtrooms is how many people we have and how many cases we have. Wow. It's not uncommon to have 50 cases set for a morning or an afternoon, and so just doing simple math, that really only leaves us a few minutes per case. So we do really need to move along and get people in and out as quickly as we can. And then as we go through the docket, of course we have priorities of cases. So the people who are in custody, we get them in and out first so that the jail officers can move to different courtrooms. And then if we have interpreters, they also have to go to different courtrooms. So we try to get them out as quickly as we can and then just work through cases as quickly as we can, but not rush cases when they need to take more time.
It's interesting that you said that because two things. I didn't know that a county commissioner and a court commissioner were different. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't know the difference. And you just explained that. So a court commissioner, you said, is elected. Is not elected.
Not elected, yep. No, it's a very common question. And, when people ask me what I do, I always have to decide, do they want the full answer, or do I just tell them that I'm a judge, because they'll know what a judge does.
So as a court commissioner, what kind of cases do you see?
Well, for our court, in Spokane Municipal Court, our primary duty is handling criminal cases. So whenever anyone is actually booked into jail, they are entitled to a hearing the next day. So myself and the other commissioners, we cover that every day. That's the primary thing that we have to worry about throughout the day. We also handle all the infractions, whether it be a traffic infraction or code infractions, all those red light tickets and photo enforced speed tickets, we do those, parking tickets. And then when the judges are gone, we cover their dockets, the criminal cases, so that they can go do the other things they need to do.
Wow. So you're like the substitute teacher, but highly qualified.
Right, yeah.
Not that substitutes aren't qualified, but just...
No, the commissioners probably cover criminal dockets once or twice a week, each one of us.
Wow.
And of course in the summer when everybody's on vacation, it's more often than that.
So you do just as whatever a judge can do?
Essentially. The only thing that commissioners can't do is preside over a criminal jury trial unless both parties agree. And I've actually done jury trials for crimes because the parties allowed me to do that.
Wow,
yep.
That shows public trust. So you've seen thousands of people come through the justice system. What are some of the common life circumstances that bring people into your courtroom?
So when we're talking about municipal court, we're talking about what is called a court of limited jurisdiction. And so we only deal with misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. We don't deal with felonies. We don't deal with murderers. We don't deal with kidnappings or very serious offenses like that. We deal with driving under the influence, driving without licenses, assaults that don't involve substantial injury, so no broken bones or anything like that. So we get a wide variety of people coming through our courts. A lot of the times, for the people that are there most often, obviously, the research calls it criminogenic factors, and they are factors that contribute to or make more likely criminal behavior. They don't cause criminal behavior, because still there's this element of choice. But we're talking about things like poverty, addiction, mental health issues, homelessness, people who have experienced domestic violence, either as like witnessing it as a child, are more likely to either be a perpetrator or a victim of domestic violence later in their life. So there's those commonalities run through a lot of our cases, and of course, many of the people that we deal with have multiple factors.
Wow, so co-occurring. So you see a lot of the individuals that we hope to get connected to the right places here at Gabriel's Challenge. Wow. So you see quite a bit on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
At Gabriel's Challenge, we believe that prevention is always better than waiting to respond in a crisis. From what you've seen, what are some of the things that families can do early that might keep the problem from ending up in the courtroom to begin with?
So that's actually a very difficult question for me to answer, because we only see the people that end up in court. We don't see the 95% of the population that doesn't end up in court. So I don't really have a baseline to compare it to. But if I had to offer an opinion, I would say it has to be connection, either family connection or community connection, because when people have problems or they get into trouble, having other people that they're connected to can give them that buffer between simply having a problem and then being pushed into crisis. And people who don't have those connections, I think, are far more likely to not be able to handle what they're going through on their own.
I see the human suffering, being a person with lived experience, having a son that had to navigate the court multiple times and having to be there for him. He didn't often even understand, some of the things, and at times he did. And it's like, we've had some good judges and commissioners who understood the challenges that he faced when it came to addiction and trying to be in recovery. It's a hard thing to watch a person struggle from system to system, and then finding that balance between accountability and compassion. You have some people who are like, lock them away, and then you have some people that says, give them a chance. And I know that it can be a challenge to find that balance between both, what people need.
Well, there's a couple points I would say about that is, first off, again, we're talking about misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. So the maximum penalty for our offenses is 364 days. The jail is going to give people a third off if they behave in jail, so good time reduction. So even if they're sentenced to the maximum penalty of 364 days, they are going to be out in our community again in 8 months. And so the idea is we're not so much trying to ignore the consequences the behavior has on and has had on the community. We're trying to decide and figure out what can we do to prevent the behavior from occurring again in the future. Because again, these people are going to be back out in our community once they've served whatever sentence they are sentenced to. And I wanted to say that also that the connection to community and family, it works both in keeping people out of the criminal justice system to begin with, but then if they are in the criminal justice system, like you said, trying to navigate through the system, and then if they're on probation, if they've been convicted and they're on kind of supervision, helping them navigate through that supervision so that they're successful and then less likely to come back. I think having that connection, having someone walking with you, can help immeasurably.
Thank you so much for sharing it. I believe in the power of community, and I looked at that with my son. I'm like, hey, what if half the people who showed up after were there in his life? Where would he be? Yep. Could he still be here? And I think that is, people say it's this person's fault, I think it's all of us have a part in, being the community that we would like others to, to see. And we all own our part in it. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And I'm glad you see that you understand the value of community and family. And oftentimes we have individuals that we look at them as an individual, not looking at the collective family that's attached to that person. So family and community is very, very important.
Absolutely.
I don't think Gabriel would even survive as long as he did without it. I really don't. So what do you wish our community understood about the role of the courts that most people simply don't know?
I think what people don't realize is that the court system it's part of a system, and we don't necessarily control the entire system. We work collaboratively with our partners as much as we can, but there's other branches of government. There's the legislature, there's the executive. The courts don't decide what the laws are. We don't decide who the police arrest. We don't decide what crimes and what people the prosecutor decides to prosecute and how they prosecute it. We don't decide what our budget is. The legislature decides what our budget is, and what our budget is directly impacts what resources we have available to us to do the work that we need to do. Of course, we do have those things that we are responsible for. We decide who gets released from custody pending trial. We decide if a person is found guilty either by plea or by trial. We decide what the sentence is, and we decide if they're going to be on probation and what the terms of those probation are going to be, and then how we're going to supervise them, understanding we're limited by what resources we have available to us. So there's always this balancing act of looking at the risk the person poses, looking at the needs that they might have that we might be able to address, and then of course looking at how responsive they're going to be if we do commit those resources to that person. Are they going to be responsive to those resources, or should we take that finite resource and use it somewhere else that might be more effective?
Wow, it's a challenge. All the system, and the help from healthcare to the justice system, even education, but just trying to navigate. I believe our systems are created for people who are well. It's hard for people who are not well, trying to navigate it. This system. When someone leaves your courtroom, what do you hope that they walk away with besides a court order?
Well, I would hope that people understand how the decision was reached, understand that a lot of times people don't like the decision and they simply won't be convinced that it was a correct decision. But they're not the only people in the courtroom. There's other people watching. So I would hope that people come away with an understanding that this wasn't just a random decision, or it wasn't just flipping a coin. There was a line of reasoning that got to that decision. And the other thing that I hope people understand and they take away from, I hope we effectively communicate it, is that we actually care. We care about victims. We care about our community. We care about defendants. We want it to work.
Wow. Do you have any stories you could tell where somebody came back and thanked you for a decision that you made? Or
that is one of the weaknesses of our system, is that we only typically see the people who fail, quote unquote fail, the people that come back because they're part of the system. We don't get a good idea of the people that are one and done and then we never see them again. So I was covering community court for Judge Logan. She was away, and there was a gentleman down there who showed up at community court at the downtown library, and this is a person whose name I remember, and if the judge remembers your name, that means you've been there quite a bit. And his cases were being dismissed, and his attorney was explaining what was going on. He had finished treatment. He actually was housed. He was getting some long-term medical conditions actually taken care of, and he had I think they said 9 months sober.
wow.
So we do have successes.
I met someone who participated in that court, and they told me they had been incarcerated over 20 years of their 40 years of their life. And they shared how they thought nobody cared about them. They thought everyone was like the correctional officers in the jail. And when they went there to that community court, how for the first time, somebody taught them how to take care of themselves. And they said, we didn't even know what a primary care provider was. And then we got one, and then a peer. And when they told me how it changed their life, they said they didn't even know that they could have fun outside of using drugs until they had to get do so many activities where it would better yourself. I think I just found out that prosecutors decide whether a person gets therapeutic court or not. So I don't know how those choices are made, but I think that the community should probably know that it's not the commissioner or the municipal court judge that says you can't go to a therapeutic court. It's determined by the prosecutor in certain laws.
Having worked in the prosecutor's office, I can tell you that I believe the prosecutors have far more impact on how a case progresses than the court does, because again, they get to choose who gets charged, what they're charged with, what their negotiated plea offer might be, if there is any. The judges and the commissioners, we just, from the point at which the person is charged, we then get to move through the legal process, but we don't get to decide who gets charged and who doesn't. And if the prosecutors just, they come to a resolution of, if you pay back the restitution for the damage that you caused, we're willing to dismiss the case. Judges can't just do that.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know. I just, usually when people get some type of moving violation or things like that, you don't know within 2 days you have to show up for court. It's interesting because nobody really explains that to you when you get arrested. It just kind of, or capture and release, you don't know until you just go look. But some people, we need to simplify that system for people who find themselves in it. And if you had a magic wand and you could change anything about courts, what would you change?
If I had a magic wand, I would, prevent people from committing criminal offenses and harming the community. But I would make sure that everybody actually gets in and talks to their lawyer. So we have a public defender's office, and everybody who's charged with a crime has the right to have an attorney, and if they can't afford an attorney, they get one appointed to help guide them through the process. But a lot of people simply won't go and meet their attorney, so that there's very little their attorney can do for them. If they won't come in and talk to their attorney, they're not going to get much help.
Well, you heard it here first. Talk to your attorney so you can get help. I don't think anybody should navigate the system without some type of support coming in, especially when you have an opportunity to get it. It could be a challenge getting in there sometimes because so many individuals, but I think that it's important that people not try to do it themselves and get the help that's available to them. So, Mike, thank you so much for coming in and helping us understand the process, because a lot of people come through Gabriel's Challenge find themselves in your courtroom. You're finding some sentences or responding to how to protect our community, and it's a challenging job. I never understood it until I got to talk to people like you who are on the front lines every day.
It is challenging, and one of the biggest challenges is not to be overcome with cynicism, but to actually continue to treat people as though they can change.
I agree. So I know this wasn't on it, but compassion, what role do you think that compassion plays in the courtroom?
So, judges and commissioners, we're human beings, right? And we feel empathy and we feel compassion towards people, but I think we first have to understand and remember that the person who's charged with the offense is not the only person in the equation. There's a community out there that has been harmed by this behavior or potentially harmed. There might be specific individuals who've been harmed by this behavior. If we're talking about an assault or damaging someone's property or stealing someone's property. So the person that is in court in front of us is not the only person for whom we should have compassion. And so there's an idea that, yes, I feel for you, but I also have to think about not only your well-being and what's good for you, but what's good for the community. And sometimes, what's good for the community is jail time for people, and that's unfortunate. But we are often put in that position where the community and specific individuals have to be protected, and that's really our first priority.
It's not an either or; it's a yes and.
It's a balance. It's balancing. To understand that there are multiple goods, and we have to try to see how we can maximize them.
The way you put that was so well stated. I think about it. People, they say, well, the courts have to understand. They have to do this. They have to do this, and we often forget about the victims.
Oh, definitely, because the victims aren't there in court.
I never thought about it in that way. It's so you want compassion here, and I can't get to work anymore because somebody stole and wrecked my car, and I might not have that deductible laying around. We don't think about the person who this car has been in my family from generation to generation, and somebody just took it, and and wrapped it around a pole.
Or now my kids don't feel comfortable going out into the yard because of the behavior of the person down the street. You know, it's so, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was the most powerful component of this interview, what you just said, that part about the victim.
Yep.
We don't talk about the victims. It's interesting that.
Well, like I mentioned, it's the defendant who's in court. That's the person you see. The victim is very rarely in court, and certainly they're not going to be at every court hearing. They might be at the trial, but that's at the end.
Wow.
So it's understandable that the system is more focused on the defendant, but we have to recalibrate our thought process to remember that there are other people in this equation.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your feedback, your questions, your answers. This has been great. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it too. Thank you for having me.